All right, we're still having some problems, but we're going to start the meeting anyway. So please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. First order of business is an announcement. Bill, you want to talk about our thriving suburban community?
Sure. So there's a company out there called Suburban Jungle. It's a real estate insider insight company that helps people and businesses locate not only homes but also communities. And that's what they sell themselves about, is we can find you the home that you want, but in the town that you want. And they advertise themselves as, a lot of real estate agents and stuff. They'll go find the home that people want, but they're not paying attention to the town, and even the buyers not paying attention to the town. So this company does both. They're national, headquartered out of New York City, and we were surprised, but not surprised because we live here, but happy and delighted when they came out with the 5 Philadelphia suburbs that keep getting hotter. And out of the 5, Collingswood, New Jersey, Havertown, PA, Voorhees, New Jersey, Horsham, PA, and Ambler, PA. They described Horsham as a great place for families who want new construction. There's plenty happening in Horsham. Horsham is growing fast, constantly adding new places for families to play, shop, and eat. They point out our 6-mile power line trail, the Wings of Freedom Aviation Museum, popular restaurants that include the Iron Abbey, Farm and Fisherman, Angelo's. They talk about our easy transportation routes to the Turnpike and to Center City. So it's, council, I'm preaching to the choir how hard we work to attract nice homes and new businesses to Horsham. And it's nice to be recognized. We don't talk to these people, and in fact, I never even knew Suburban Jungle existed until now. So it's nice to be recognized. It's a lot of hard work to do the work that we do at the township to keep the township moving progressively forward and keeping the town nice and attractive into the future. So it also leads me to always keeping plugging for updating our comprehensive plan. So not only can residents, but non-residents and business owners can also complete our survey that'll be up for the next few months, and it's on our website. And it's very important that our business owners and community members or residents complete this community survey because it tells us what they're looking for and what they would like. So they're part of what makes Horsham and what we've done and the decisions you make, attracting businesses and companies to town and nice residential developments in town. So that's all part of it, and that's part of our comprehensive plan. So it's very important that everyone spread the word, and I don't know how many employees Chapman has or the school district has, but it's important that we get as many responses as we can. We're up to about, actually, as of today, I think we had almost 500 complete the survey. They're hoping for, the County Planning Commission is hoping for around 1,000. So I'm hoping for a whole lot more than 1,000. We have 28,000 people that work here and 28,000 that live here and 35,000 that work here. So I'm hoping for a lot more than 1,000. So that's it.
Cool. Very good. On Sean?
Yep.
You're on, Sean?
Yep, I'm here. And if I may, real quick, I just want to say whoever did the survey from the township, I've gotten a lot of good feedback. They were impressed by actually how thorough the questions were, and they're looking forward to the fall and seeing on how the results turn out.
Good. Very, very good.
Here. All right, next is opportunity questions comments from the public. Anybody? Not being any, we'll move on to the approval list checks. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the list of checks and all funds in the amount of $747,325.75, and further move to authorize payment of the same.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved?
Aye.
Opposed, rather? Ayes have it. Next is the subdivision land development plans. We're going to do that first. Hatboro Horsham School District.
So the Hatboro Horsham School District, Keith Valley Middle School, they have received recommended final approval from the Township Planning Commission. They were in front of you earlier this month for review of their final plans. They are ready for your consideration tonight for final approval. We do not have their agreement to accept conditions all signed, but they do agree to all the conditions of the resolution. It's just a matter of getting all the signatures that are needed. So the staff's recommendation is that you still consider final approval subject to receiving the agreement to accept conditions.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt the resolution as proposed, granting final land development approval to the Hatboro Horsham School District, Keith Valley Middle School, 227 Meeting House Road, 21-13-D, subject to receipt of the signed agreement to accept conditions.
Second.
Moved in second. Is a roll call vote.
Ms. Harmon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Nesbitt, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wade, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And Mr. McCouch, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next is JD signature. I think we're tabling that one.
Yes, sir.
Do we need a motion or just?
Yeah.
We need a motion for that. Somebody.
Move to table JD Signature Homes to a later date.
Yes.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Next is James Oliveris, 929 Lime Kiln Pike.
That received recommended preliminary final approval from the Township Planning Commission. We do have their agreement to accept conditions, and it is ready for your consideration this evening.
Motion?
I move to adopt the resolution as proposed, granting preliminary final subdivision approval to James Oliveros, 929 Lime Kiln Pike, 22-04-S.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Again, a roll call vote.
Ms. Harmon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Nesbitt, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wade, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And Mr. McCouch, how do you vote? Motion passes unanimously.
Finally, we have Pete's Car Wash.
Mary, did we have?
We do have signed agreements. They came in a few minutes ago. I had electronic versions of the agreements earlier today and reviewed them, and they were satisfactory.
So you just, yes, get rid of the subject too. We do have, the Township Planning Commission has given that recommended final approval. They were in front of you for final review, and as Ms. Eberly just said, we do have their agreement to accept conditions, and so it's ready for your consideration this evening.
We have a motion.
I move to adopt the resolution as proposed, granting final land development approval to HTER Group LLC, 233 Easton Road, 21-11-D.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Again, a roll call vote.
Ms. Harmon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Nesbitt, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wade, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And Mr. McCouch, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, now we move on to the zoning hearing board applications. First one being Triple Net.
Triple Net was in front of you, I believe, in March. This is on County Line Road across from Titus Avenue. Jim, I'll ask you to sit at this table for microphone reasons. At that time, they made a presentation in front of you. Council had some concerns and issues, one to include a traffic study. So they agreed to continue their application to do the traffic study and also address some of the concerns and issues you had that evening. So they are back in front of you this evening to share with you their revised plan.
Which I think has been delivered to the township. I'll give you maybe 10 seconds of background. My name is Jim Garrity. I'm an attorney representing the applicant. And if I remember my Roman numerals, it'd be 84, I think. Triple Net 84. They love Roman numerals. This, of course, is a tract of 31.27 acres immediately adjacent to your park on County Line Road. We are proposing two warehouse buildings, one at 100,000 square feet, one at 224,000 square feet. Both buildings and the use in general are permitted in the district. This is not, and I emphasize not, going to be an Amazon fulfillment center. It's going to be at least the way we have it figured at the moment, it is going to be a multi-tenant, basic, normal warehouse type of facility. There is a wooded area in the center of the site, which you can, I guess, kind of see in the what's up on the screen there. Now, that causes us a problem because it has been our desire from the beginning to run the buildings parallel to County Line Road rather than perpendicular, so that all of the truck loading and unloading will not be seen and cannot be seen, because the bigger building or the larger building is in the front, and as you know from the plans, all of the loading is between the two buildings. So the only thing you will see in the front of the building between County Line Road and the first building is regular vehicle parking. There's 184,580 square feet of utility easements benefiting the Naval Air Base that, as you know, has to be subtracted from our developable site area before we calculate impervious cover. The two main reasons we need to go to the zoning board that bring us here in front of you are the naval base utilities that I mentioned before, and placing those buildings parallel rather than perpendicular to County Line Road. We agreed, I think, or we said we would, at the last time we were in front of you, do a traffic study, which we have done. PennDOT review has taken place. This township's review has taken place. Warrington Township's review of that traffic study has taken place. And we've done all that even though we have not yet filed any land development plans. There is some, not confusion, but there is some concern, shall we say, about the land use code selected, and that'll be explained tonight by Sandy Koza. You'll find out that the type of warehousing facility that we're talking about has a different peak hour than the adjoining roads, so that the concept of peak hour both applies to roads and applies to uses, and this particular use has a different peak hour you will hear than the roads that join it. We've made a number of changes in the plan as a result of the traffic study and the requests from the Township Council, which I would like my first, I won't call him witness because this isn't a hearing, but my first expert, Justin Giannotti from Dynamic Engineering. And Justin, maybe you could just go over the changes in the plan since the last time we were here and why we made them.
Good evening, everyone. When we were before you back in March, there was a number of concerns that you guys raised, so that we brought back, we went back to the drawing board and tried to make some changes to rectify them. Just going to walk you through the changes since you've last seen this plan. This is a newly rendered plan. There's a couple of things, and I think this should work. So along the frontage here, we actually pushed the building back 50 additional feet. So doing that gave you a little bit more buffer. I know there were some concerns about the warehouses being so close to the roads. We were able to work it within the site to push the buildings back about 50 feet. In doing so, that allowed us also to propose a sidewalk along the frontage there. It meets the township spec. It's going to have the decorative street lights as well, but that goes from one side to the next along the entire frontage. You'll see also, if you were to compare this to the plan prior, we originally had a connection to the Naval Air, to the Horsham Air Guard Station along the back of the property. Due to a number, we're not getting a lot of feedback from them. We're still providing connectivity for a future connection, which is shown right along the center of the property, but we eliminated that back connection. It was additional impervious. We didn't have enough feedback to really warrant it, and then we were able to push the site back entirely about 50 feet by eliminating that. When we were here last time, there were 6 variances that we were requesting, and there was a lot of concerns about 2 or 3 in particular. Along this one side here is Strawbridge Park. It requires a 50-foot residential buffer due to the differing uses. There was concerns about us needing to encroach into that buffer to allow us to construct a stormwater management basin. The layout as you see it here is really generally the same, but there was originally a stormwater management basin along that one side. We did some additional stormwater testing. We're able to put the basin underground and minimize that basin along that, it's the north side of the plan, but it's the right side if you're looking at the plan. So we were able to eliminate 3 variances. We no longer need the variance for the residential buffer encroachment. We no longer need the buffer for, let me go through the exact ones. that. Thought I memorized them, but I didn't. So it's basically the plantings, the buffer, and woodland disturbance on site. So we were able to go back, revise the design, and we're down to 3 variances instead of 6. So that was fully engineered landscaping design in front of you now. As you see, that we're complying with all replacement tree calculations, street tree calculations, and woodland disturbance. Which one are you looking at, sir?
It's the old rendering, yes, sir.
So that's the old 3D rendering, but still the same look. I mean, really what you're seeing is that's going to be pushed back another 50 feet.
I think the only thing that's really different on those renderings is that the connection point to the Naval Air Base for possible connection in the future has been moved a little bit.
Correct. So now, for as far as variances that are still being required, we are requesting a variance for the loading spaces to be 13 feet wide, where 14 feet is otherwise required by your ordinance. And again, that's the loading stalls for the actual trailers along the back side and the inside of the building. Industry standard's 13 feet wide. A trailer's about 8 to 8.5 feet wide, so that gives you enough space in between. We don't usually see 14. It's unnecessary, so that's a nominal decrease we're requesting. We're also requesting an impervious variance for 6%, where 65 is permitted. And lastly, to permit a
Can you
park.
say that again?
68.6% impervious, where 65 is permitted. 3.6 over. And then just along that variance, we also submitted a full preliminary landscape, our stormwater design to your township engineer, who reviewed it and wrote back that basically the stormwater can be designed in accordance with the ordinance with the additional impervious. And then the last variance that we are requiring is to permit parking area to be located in the front yard. Even though we pushed it back another 50 feet, it's still in the front of the building and still partially in the front yard. And again, the reason that we oriented the building such as this way is to shield from the street. The front of the building is going to be more attractive than the loading operations at the docks. So that's going to be fully obscured from the street, fully buffered, and that requires us to have the parking in front of the building. Again, still fully landscaped from the street with the sidewalk, decorative lighting, and enhanced buffering, but still, it's sidewalk, sorry, and still the parking is still in the front yard, which requires a variance. So we're down from 6 to 3, and I think we took a lot of your considerations and comments into consideration and developed a better plan.
So, one question. So the access road going, that you had to the back to the Navy,
I believe, where is that? Can you cut that old rendering real quick?
It's well, they show this one now.
yeah, I know.
It was all the way in the back.
Right.
Yeah, it's in the front. There it is.
So that looks like, hard to tell. It looks like did the old, I guess it wouldn't have lined up with Langley. Wouldn't have lined up with their old Langley Street, right?
No, it would not have. It would just
trying to
intersecting
gauge
into
where it's at.
Andrews.
So the new one, you said you have a new one that goes between the buildings, that's not really lining up with anything, and you said you've put that in there, but you have no contact with the Navy as to whether that's what they want.
Despite multiple attempts, we've had no
And that
feedback.
includes the original driveway. It's
Right,
not
right,
the
right.
location that they necessarily said they wanted.
So this may or may not be the final connection point.
If there's any.
If there's any.
They have,
I mean,
shall I say, run me around a bit.
how do we do with that, Mayor? It's like,
I was at a recent meeting, probably 3 weeks ago, with Representative Stevens on the base, and we brought this up, the commander's back.
Right.
And we brought this up to his attention, actually, brought the plans, I brought the plans with me that showed the rear connection, and didn't get much of a positive or negative response, and didn't get much of any response. If they agreed with it, if they want it, they looked at it and said, thanks for sharing, And so even the township has not gotten any letter or response from them if they want a connection.
Yeah, and they made a space for them, so if the neighbor wants to use it, they can.
Right, we're not in land development spot in that point anyway. This could change, is basically what I'm saying. They decide to come back later and say, well, we don't want it there, we want it somewhere else, or whatever, it's.
Again, we would have to work with them with that, yes.
If I can just say, part of the problem is that, as you know better than I, is a Homeland Security site, and they don't want it to go in straight. They want it to wiggle, for reasons that are, I guess, obvious. And they wanted to buy the entire property at one point until we told them how much we paid for it, and they said, well, that's not going to happen. We'll try to accommodate them. We always said we would. I've told everybody over there that I've spoken to that we would try to accommodate them, asked for their input so that we could put it on our plans, and never got anything.
That's a question I have. Anybody else? Any questions about it?
This plan, this has road widening and traffic signals.
It does.
Did the old stuff have that, or is this something new?
Yes, I should have mentioned in my introduction that our project includes the full signalization of the intersection at County Line and Titus.
And is it right in, right out, or can you make a left-hand turn?
Sure. And we have a traffic engineer tonight to go through all that, but I'll just, from a plan, we changed the alignment of this intersection here. This is going to be a right in, right out. This is where the signalized intersection is for Titus. Obviously, there's going to be some road widening, decel lanes that we can get into in a second, but also that's going to be a full access intersection there, obviously, at the signal. All between PennDOT, Horsham, Warrington, so all parties have been involved, and we can get into that more detail with traffic engineer.
So I have a question for you guys. I'm up on the screen. So it looks like you guys can adjust these warehouses for whatever size fits the mission. Why can't you guys just reduce the warehouse to be within the impervious? Sounds like you can build this to whatever square footage fits.
Yeah, you got it.
I think if we were required to reduce the impervious, it would not be building square footage. It would be trailer parking. And the square footage of the building is just too valuable for how expensive a site this is with the signalization and everything else. So we would take some of the non-mandatory truck parking, which of course is impervious, and convert that to green if we absolutely had to, but we would prefer not to.
Mary,
Thank you.
Mary, a comment was made that this is not going to be a fulfillment center or an Amazon fulfillment center. What conditions do we have at this stage to assure us that it won't become that? If some other person comes along and takes over the project once you got whatever approvals you want, and then we're staring down the barrel of something different than what we see in front of us.
Staff met with the applicants about 2 weeks ago, on June 3rd, and Mr. Walker and I have a list of conditions, which we'll probably go over with you at the conclusion of the presentation.
And I just wanted to make it clear, too, that because forever is such a long, long time, the agreement that I've received from my township with regard to that particular question is that we will agree that it will not be that use or anything similar to that use without coming back and doing the whole thing over again in front of the board. But I can't speak to what the conditions are going to be 20 years from now.
So we have more presentation?
You want to do the
I
traffic?
just wanted Sandy to address the traffic comments that we've received and tried to address.
So before we do that, should we address these three variances? All right, we'll listen to the rest of it, then we'll come back to it, okay.
I'm sorry, I should have introduced you. This is Sandy Koza.
Yeah, Sandy Koza from McMahon Associates. So we had prepared a traffic impact study for this, and this was done when we were looking at both of those driveways being full movement. So since then, we've received comments from PennDOT, we've received comments from the township, and from Warrenton Township. So we're in the process right now of going through all those comments and working on revisions to the traffic impact study, as well as revisions to the site plan to address those. So that's why that first driveway that they were mentioning, the eastern driveway, that one has been converted to a right-in, right-out only driveway. And that was based upon everyone's reviews and concerns of how close that was to the left turn that was for traffic entering Warrenton Crossing. So that one's going to have the full channelization island. That's going to restrict it to right-in, right-out only. At our main access, we are committed to putting in the traffic control signal. The other thing that we're doing is when we reviewed the County Line Road plans, for some reason, the 3-lane cross-section that they were doing on County Line Road in the other areas was not carried through between our 2 access points and Warrenton Crossings, that signal. So we're going to be widening along our frontage once we get to our improvement part, and we're going to make sure that that center left turn lane is carried the whole way through there. So it's going to be a consistent roadway cross-section. The other improvement that we've been asked to provide is a deceleration lane, a right turn lane on County Line Road into our western driveway there, which is where we're going to be putting that traffic control signal. So we are going to be doing that type of improvement as well out there on the road. So those are what we're proposing to do for our access improvements. I believe one of the questions that has come up is the type of trip generation that we're looking at for this site and how trucks are distributed throughout the day. That type of question, I understand, came up at one of the prior meetings. So when we're looking at this, because we're looking at having multi-tenants on this, and we're not necessarily looking at this moment, putting in some type of distribution center, we're basing our traffic impact study on a general warehousing code to do our trip generation. So that's showing us that in our peaks, we're looking at about 64 to 69 trips per hour total coming in and out of those driveways. Now, because we changed this to be right in, right out only, we're going to see more traffic coming in and out of that western driveway where we're going to install that traffic control signal. The way that it works in terms of some of the other comments that we've received from PennDOT in regard to that same concern in terms of that distribution warehouse and the fact that that would generate more traffic is they're going to make us sign a condition statement that basically says that if this use were ever to change to something like that, we would be required to come back in with an all-new traffic impact study, and we would most likely have to do additional mitigation measures out here in the area to address that increase in traffic. But right now, at this moment, the applicant is not anticipating that type of tenant coming into this facility.
Those are the main, Sammy can go into detail on anything particularly concerns.
So,
At the Titus Avenue intersection, obviously there'll be a left turn lane going into the project, correct?
Yes.
How, do we know how long that lane's gonna be? And the reason I'm asking is I kind of feel like the majority of traffic that's coming in is gonna be coming from 611, down County Line, and then left in at the light.
Right.
So that, and it's mostly gonna be tractor trailers, I would imagine, right?
Yes, and
So how long is that turning lane going to be to accommodate several trucks that will be sitting at the light that don't back up into the through lane of County Line?
well, that's one of the reasons that we're actually widening that to have that consistent cross-section there. So we're going to dedicate and stripe so that it at least has 125 feet. That's going to be the white lane striping going in for the left only. But behind that, we're going to have the two-way center left turn lane striping so that if that happens, there's room for those trucks to queue in that area. So it won't
and I see
interfere with
that.
Right, the question, yeah, again, the question is how many trucks could fit in that turning lane? Because
Even though you have a turning lane and you have that room behind it for cars.
or trucks to queue into that middle section, it still becomes, I've seen it in other areas where the turning lanes are not long enough. And cars back up into that, and it creates an issue where if there's oncoming traffic and this guy's going in to queue up into a turning lane that's already stacked up and somebody's coming the other way and they're trying to make a left turn, and then you have this head-on situation where they're both kind of getting into the lane at the same time. I want to try to avoid that situation where the turning lane itself is going to be long enough that we're comfortable with, you know, you can get 2 tractor trailers, 3 tractor trailers. I don't know, that's why I'm asking how long and how many trucks could get into that turning lane. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So if we're looking at like a 50-foot tractor trailer, something like that, then about 125 feet covers about 2 tractor trailers sitting there. The other thing that we're also doing is when we're doing the traffic control signal, we're going to be installing an advanced phase for that left turn movement. So we're going to do what we can to keep that moving so that they can get in when they are queued out there.
Sandy, is there any overlap between the left turn to go into our site and the left turn to go into the shopping center across the street that council might be concerned about? There's no overlap. There's a gap in between the 2 dedicated left turn areas?
Okay, so we're about 900 feet away at least from our eastern
Someone else
access.
being
And then,
able
yeah,
to get
Warrenton
in.
Crossings, that next signal is even further away.
And I imagine, I can't imagine more, well, I guess I could imagine more than 2 tractor trailers being in the turning lane, but it seems like that should be sufficient. Will, are these signals going to be camera operated?
That'd be all state of the art.
So they'll see when there's,
They're going to have to meet
Radar.
whatever the township specs are. And most townships now, I think, have the video detection for the cameras, because
so
that's,
they know when to turn the lights so people, they can move.
It's radar now.
They're not
No radar?
inexpensive.
Yeah, whatever, yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be all state of the art.
There's a May 16th review letter from Gilmore's traffic engineer. There's a number of issues.
yes, and those were actually what we're working through right now, in terms of we're going back through the study, and that's why we're revising the study to address the comments that they had.
Right, but we're here today on,
This you know, wasn't the last time they were here, we said, go back and get a traffic study. Mary, right? They got a traffic study. We have Gilmore's response to the traffic study. It sounds like you're still working out some of these issues that are raised in the traffic study.
Well, yes, we just actually got Warrenton's letter on, I think it was Thursday or Friday.
I'm
so-
referencing the May 16th letter from Gilmore and Associates.
Yes,
That's what I was referring to.
right, we did not get PennDOT's letter until after this date as well. So we have to wait till we get all of our review letters before we can go in and revise everything.
But would it be fair to say that, what's the increased square footage that's causing the variance on the impervious surface coverage?
24?
Building square footage, we're not reusing.
Oh, building square footage, not,
Wouldn't the build,
we would reduce, as I said earlier, we would reduce truck parking that isn't required, but that we would like to have to take care of any impervious problem.
because like the first point they make in the review comments, the applicant's looking for variances which would allow for larger buildings on the proposed site. I'm assuming this says provide a comparison, that you should provide a comparison of a trip generation for the proposed plan with variances versus a non-variance plan.
Greg, if you remember at the last time.
I wasn't at the last meeting.
Oh, sorry. So
Okay.
at the last meeting, they were asking for that variance for the buffer from the township's park. And they weren't meeting that
Oh, okay.
setback. So
So
that
this,
was
this applies to the prior variance that they're no longer requesting.
correct.
I got you. And then the next one is, it talks about scoping application. I don't know if this really, doesn't really make any.
This is where this is where they get into those different land use codes from ITE. So we're using land use code 150, which is the general warehousing, which is
Right.
what you usually use when you have multi-tenants. They were looking at 156 rather, that's the most conservative one, and that's more in line with your Amazon distribution centers. So it has a lot higher percentage of traffic that comes in and out.
the sense I got from the traffic and the Gilmore traffic engineer's comments was that if you had better understanding as to what tenants would be in there, it might help in terms of really pinpointing a more accurate traffic study. Is that, or did I just misread that?
No, so that's exactly what they said, I think.
Do you have a sense of what your tenants are going to be?
Well, we have a sense of what tenants we want, and that's a multi-tenant warehousing use as opposed to a single-tenant use like Amazon's fulfillment centers, which, by the way, believe it or not, these buildings
appear to be too small for them.
Right, but it doesn't have to be something of the scope of an Amazon. It could be two tenants. One tenant takes the front building, one takes the back building, and maybe that skews you then have a more regulated peak hour type trips that might be different from what you're proposing. I just want to know that what we're talking about in terms of the, and I guess I keep jumping the gun because I want to know, I don't know what conditions you guys are talking about in terms of the use, and I want to be assured that we don't have a situation where there's maybe two tenants or three tenants that generate a lot more trip traffic than several tenants.
That's
I think, exactly what Mary and I have to work out is the conditions that we would agree to, and I presume I have to agree to them before the zoning board meeting.
No, usually council, usually council recommends conditions, and they go to the zoning hearing board, and you can state your case with the zoning hearing board as to whether or not you think you can fulfill the conditions and why, and they're the judge of that. Council doesn't normally negotiate the conditions. It puts it forth to the zoning hearing board what it would like to see. And to answer your question, in the list of conditions that Mr. Walker and I developed during the meeting, changing like the number of tenants and the nature of the tenants was not part of it, but that is a good suggestion. And I think maybe we should be able to incorporate that into a condition, so that it can't be more than, you're estimating a number of trips, and that it can't be more, that the nature of the tenants can't be more than X number of trips daily.
This is the last time we see them before they go in front of the zoning hearing board?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we know if they're going to agree to the conditions that you're gonna give to them? So in order for us to state whether we're gonna stay neutral or we're gonna go in opposition?
It's been my experience that the zoning hearing board has faithfully adopted council's recommended conditions.
Correct. And if I don't agree to them, I'm assuming I'm looking at township opposition. I understand that. That's why I'm here tonight.
Okay, so we're at a point where we're gonna talk about conditions? Or not?
Are you ready?
I have another question. In the traffic study, was there any requirement, how far an area do you look at in that study? And what I'm referring to specifically is the intersection of County Line and 611, because that intersection is a disaster today. And I can just picture filling up that left-hand turn lane that already doesn't work with tractor and trailer trucks. How is that affected? What happens?
I would concur with Bill, and if I can hop on, look, number 7 specifically on the remarks, pretty much all surrounding intersections are already overloaded, the queue lengths. So how will your usage, it seems like that's outside the scope of anything you guys will be willing to do, and anything you guys will do would just make the queues worse.
Go ahead. Talk about the scoping.
Great, so this was fully scoped with PennDOT, Horsham Township, and Warrington Township. So that intersection is included. There's other intersections that are also included. We're going all the way over to Keith Valley Road and Kansas Road. That was included. And then we're also going up to the Easton Road and Titus Avenue intersection. So those were kind of like our outlying intersections that were included within the study. So we did look at the operations of that particular intersection with the 5 legs that are out there, because that's part of what the issue is, I think, is because there is every so often the Privet Road intersection, also, like leg, also has to come up in terms of timing out there. The way that it works is because that's the intersection of 2 state roads, we're under PennDOT's mitigation criteria for that intersection. So we technically meet their mitigation criteria for that intersection. And I know that there's going to be some issues with some of the queues. We did look at potential improvements, and that's something that we're going to be talking about more once we get into the land development phase, because I know I've talked to the applicant about a couple of things that we could potentially do when we were looking at the northbound phase, because there's an existing median in there, and we could potentially minimize that median width some more to match what's further up towards the intersection, and that would give us, I think, another about 25 to, I think it's 50, maybe 60 feet of storage for that northbound left. The other movement that we're looking at that is probably going to be prevalent out here, because when you go to and from the south, you're going to the turnpike. So we're looking at that northbound left and then the westbound right, or not westbound, the eastbound right. Those are our heavy turning movements at this particular intersection. So we think that we can get this to work the way that it would need to. But again, these are things that are going to be worked out with PennDOT and the two townships as we go forward with revising the study and also doing more in the report itself.
But am I understanding correctly that you are willing to or considering improvements at that intersection to make the additional traffic work?
We're limited, though, in terms of what we can do, because there is
Kind of the point.
limited
You can
right-of-way
study
out
it,
there.
But there's not a whole lot you can do there.
Well, if PennDOT says you're not getting an HOP unless you do this, then we've got to figure it out.
I think what we're hearing from council is concern that not just the turning lanes into the site, but the effect on the county line Eastern Road intersection are probably the most important aspects of this application. And now, there's more incentive on the applicant to work with the township, to agree to things. At land development, you will probably say words like, well, PennDOT's got the control of this situation, and they say this is what we propose is fine, and walk away. So I think we may be looking at a situation where you want to postpone going to the zoning hearing board and do land development contemporaneously with your zoning hearing board relief.
Well, we've already postponed the zoning hearing board twice.
You understand that?
Well, I will present that to my clients, but I think I know the answer.
I can tell you that I'm, and I apologize for not being here at the first meeting, but obviously those that were here had enough concerns about the proposed variances in the application to ask for a traffic study. You got the traffic study, you got your comments back, and admittedly, some of those comments you got more recently from Warrington Township. It sounds like you just got those.
We did.
And what I'm hearing in response to both the Gilmore letter, but also you're still digesting the Warrington comments, is we think we can deal with that down the road. We'll work with PennDOT, but quite frankly, I don't know if all of these issues are strictly PennDOT issues. Somebody will correct me, but this is our opportunity to try to work through some of this to the extent that we can.
A large majority of the issues are PennDOT issues, and this is your opportunity to work through.
I feel like we don't have enough clarity because you haven't had the opportunity to respond to all of these comments, particularly in the Warrington letter, to know with any true sense of what ultimately will happen. Because this sounds like there's still discussion that needs to take place about this.
Obviously, there's a, and when you're, go ahead, Jim, ask the question. I was going to answer a question you hadn't asked, but I thought they were going to say, well, like, at what point do you think it will be ready? And I think it's when PennDOT fully weighs in and you've addressed all the PennDOT, Warrington, and Horsham comments, and we know exactly what it is you'll be proposing at land development. I think at that point, council can have a lot more certainty about what it is it's agreeing to or being neutral about.
I understand what you're saying, and I, as you know, have sat in your seat quite a few times. And I would only go so far as to very politely remind council that this is a permitted use, and we're not responsible for every traffic improvement in the entire township. We'll do our best, and we'll do what we can do, and council will have to decide what it wants to do, and I understand how that all works. Believe me, I understand. But I can't tell you that I'm going to advise my client at this point to fix intersections that I feel are not really our responsibility, particularly when our peak hour doesn't match the road's peak hour. And that's a big point. I mean, our use is not going, especially as conditioned tonight, our use is not going to increase the or worsen the letter grades of any traffic movements in the normal peak hours of those roads. In fact, it slightly improves.
If I can come in there, you guys are trying to build in a little bit of a precarious spot when it comes to tractor trailers. As recently as within the last few months, we had a tractor trailer that shut down the whole intersection. So we are very, at least me, I think I can speak for the rest of us, we are very considerable. We take great consideration in the traffic impact of all spots within Horsham, but especially in areas that weren't necessarily originally built for this sort of purpose. So we want to make sure that we put the residents and whoever uses these roads in the best position while giving you guys the proper adherence.
I understand.
Mayor, at this point, can we just hear what the conditions are that you guys have worked out?
We can run through the conditions that.
I'd just like to hear so that everyone's aware of what the current conditions would be.
Obviously, did you have your list in front of you? You want to go through them?
I do, I can check
Yeah.
off as.
And I'll go through. You go first.
Well, this, Jim, as you know, comes from our staff meeting, so I think there should be a condition of restriction. We already talked about the Amazon centers, the fulfillment centers. Another term that I'm learning about is L, less than truckload carriers, is another restriction. We also talked to them at the staff meeting about no drone. As you guys know, drone deliveries are becoming more discussed about, and we said no drone restrictions. That there would be no drone deliveries out of this location. The trees, you're taking that line of trees out, but you also agreed to plant a lot of trees in the rear of the property.
All of which are shown on the landscape plan.
Yep. You already explained that you're pushing the buildings back another 50 feet, and that we talked about the front yard. The additional front yard is heavy landscape, maybe a berm in the front yard. You mentioned the road widening that you didn't have at the last plan, so there's three lanes along the frontage of County Line Road. You've agreed to put the sidewalk in with the street lamps. You've agreed to the traffic signal at Titus and County Line. You agreed to the right in, right out for your non-signalized entrance and exit. You've agreed for signage, no LED for any ground sign or facade sign that you would put.
Message boards that
Message
you talked
boards.
about. No problem.
You agreed to that. You agreed to, I guess this goes back to the original use when we talked about the fulfillment restrictions and other things, that it's a standard warehouse use. And we also talked about County Line Road and going eastbound on County Line. If a truck and trailer come eastbound on County Line to the facility, you would consider a full right turn lane for your facility, but you would need property from the township in order to make that happen.
If we needed it, I think we're pretty close, but if we need it, we might need a couple of feet from the township to put a right turn decel lane and widen the right turn into our site, because the next property owner is the township.
And then we talked about the facade of the building itself, and that was sort of open to a council discussion if they liked the gray and the blue, or if council wanted some other colors on the building, or a different facade. That was going to be, a council decision, not a staff decision. And I think, Mary, did I cover?
I think you covered. The only thing that I would add to that is just tying any relief into the plan that they're presenting us tonight, which I think, if my old eyes are correct, is 616, Justin?
I'm sorry, yes, 616, that's correct.
Yes, correct. And I think one other thing that we mentioned, or that I mentioned earlier, is that I have to preserve the right to come back to the board and ask for something else 30 years from now if that happens.
Yeah, and you and I would dicker over that language, because
I'm
it's
sure we will.
because it's a permitted use. I think there has to be a little bit more involved than just coming back and say, hey, we're doing this now. So I would word that without council approval.
Well, and I probably disagree, and we'll go back and forth.
And the end result of that may be some time period. So
Yeah.
within the first 20 years, it needs council approval. After 20 years, consistent with the ordinance.
And the other condition that wasn't discussed at the staff meeting, but was discussed tonight, and you guys would work the language out, but how to restrict the number of trips, tractor-trailer trips.
Are you looking at me when you say that, or?
No, Mary.
Okay, because I didn't remember saying anything about that.
Yeah, I was going to duck back too.
Oh, we discussed
I think
that. That was
might be the
discussed.
Same thing, Bill, because the number of trips would change the use code in the ITE manual, and that's what you're concerned about.
Let me just get a little bit more history on this. So, after the last meeting, when you said, go get us a traffic impact study, and McMahon and Associates came with the traffic impact study, I'm now hearing conditions that are traffic related. Are the conditions that are and I'm looking beyond you at Eric a little bit too, how much of the May letter that I'm seeing, which says verify, check this, check that, went into the discussion about conditions? Because I don't, my brain, limited brain can't look at that, hear the conditions that are being talked about and say, this is what we identified as the primary traffic issues, and we were able to establish what we needed from a township perspective. When I say that, from a Warrington and Horsham Township perspective, that, for lack of a better term, we got what we were going to get. In other words, does staff, because whether this is, this warehouse type design development, or if it's Joe Smith putting a pool in, staff will make recommendations as to how they feel about the process. And a lot of the process we're not seeing, and we're getting kind of at the last, not the last minute, but we're trying to piece all this together, and this is way beyond my skill set. So from a staff perspective, one of the things that we often say is, how does staff feel about the conditions that we're getting, and does this satisfy the concerns of the traffic engineer? The concerns, I'm not saying it has to satisfy every concern. I understand we're not going to satisfy every concern, but I guess, is my question clear?
Yes. Eric, you want to take a shot at it first, and then I'll
Well,
go.
I mean, at the staff meeting, there were certainly discussions of our letter and some possible solutions. Sandy kind of alluded to them tonight, but we don't know exactly what solutions they are willing to do and not willing to do, and which they've confirmed tonight. So I wish, maybe it's not going to land development at this point, but I'd love for them to actually revise their traffic study and commit to certain things before you guys would have to be neutral or neutral with conditions, since that's the big issue here. And
It could be in the form of a condition as well, that they, prior to the zoning hearing, address the concerns in your May 16th letter to your satisfaction, and or council authorizes the solicitor to go in opposition to the application. It could be, you're making a face, that's not, you don't think it'll get done before the zoning hearing?
well,
The 11th?
I don't know if they're going to want to do everything that we said. I'm pretty sure they don't.
Well, let's be clear. I'm not saying, I'm asking for you to have them do everything that was said, because I do get the fact that the Gilmore traffic engineer was asking for verification of some things, and then maybe some things are more strongly worded. And frankly, it's way beyond my skill set to say what is a comment versus a recommendation or a requirement. I mean, I can read maybe a landscape architect's comments and know what they feel strongly about and what they don't. When it comes to traffic, it's a little less clear to me, because it's a little more mathematics. So I think I might feel comfortable if those to-do items that sounded like something that could be resolved sooner rather than later, that were addressed by staff, and engineering with them to your satisfaction. I might feel more comfortable about that than just, this is it, take it or leave it. That's kind of where because I know we keep bouncing back, that's where I'm at.
And also as a reminder, addressing items to the satisfaction of the township engineer doesn't necessarily mean that every bullet point in that letter is complied with. It's a matter of working it out reasonably.
Right, and the message should be clear that that doesn't mean when we get to land development, we're not going to pound the table on traffic-related issues as well.
I anticipate.
And you're not going to come back and say, well, we got our zoning hearing approval, so we're not going to work on it.
We know we have a long way to go, but I think of the issues that Bill just enumerated, we were fine with all this.
Well, it sounds like there might be a couple things down the line that they might want to tweak in the shorter term on traffic-related issues. And I feel more comfortable hearing that it might get a second look, but I think not an unreasonable second look.
And just a couple things, Greg, since, again, you weren't, as you know, weren't at the first meeting, that we tried to get regarding traffic, and they've so far committed to. I like the idea about the northbound left turn lane on 611, if you can extend that. We didn't talk about that at the staff meeting, but that would be a help. But the restrictions on the fulfillment centers and the less than truckload, we thought that would help with traffic if they would agree to that. The road widening to have 3 lanes in front rather than the 2 lanes that they originally showed us. Of course, the traffic signal helped. The right in, right out only on their secondary that they didn't have on their first plan. And then the deceleration lane eastbound to get those trucks that do come that way, even though there may not be a lot of them, that they can get over and out of the way of the regular traffic going eastbound on the travel
That's
lane.
a problem, Bill. I mean, as long as we could maybe have a couple feet from the township if we need it.
And as Sandy said, as I mentioned earlier, that was a new idea about trying to get the northbound 611 left turn lane extended some so trucks. And you also, they told us during the staff meeting, I think you said in the 24-hour period, it would be 80 to 90 trucks in a 24-hour period.
No, that's peak hour, isn't it?
No, that's definitely not peak hour. Basically, what we're looking at in terms of total trucks is, would be entering, so then you have to double that for what would be exiting then at the same time. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, but
Okay.
in terms of just a number for the trucks, that's what we were looking at, was around that many.
A day.
For trucks, not trips. If we're looking at truck trips, it's twice that number. It's closer to, I think it's 180 something was what we had in our study, 184 is what I want to say.
Gotcha.
If a driver comes in a car and says, now I'm going to take the
Understood,
truck
right.
out, that's, his car is 2 trips.
So the whole intersection of 611 and County Line, just to go back to what you were talking about earlier, it's really in PennDOT's control, right? Like you said, if they come back and say, we want this, that, and the other thing done, otherwise you don't get your HOP.
It is, and we have to pay a traffic
They know.
impact fee also.
Well, except they commented that they technically meet their requirements.
Right.
So that doesn't necessarily mean they fixed the intersection.
No, I get
So,
that.
I mean, I actually have a question and a comment that's related here. We know this is a permitted use. The dilemma is you're introducing a significant volume of tractor-trailer traffic to our township, County Line at 611, and there's nothing you can do to mitigate that, nothing you can do to fix it. You heard us on the site. The things that you did on the site were really good, and it's clear that you heard us on the site. I guess the question that I have to everybody in the room is how do we put pressure on everybody involved to make sure that there's enough of an improvement at the intersection at County Line and 611 so that it doesn't technically meet the requirement but still doesn't work? So how can we put pressure on whoever's involved to fix that?
Well, I would like to hear exactly what they're willing to do at County Line 611, even if that exceeds what PennDOT would require, because this is the time you might be able to get them to agree to that. At land development, they'll say PennDOT's not requiring it, we're not going to
We need to know
do
what
it.
that is before we can.
I totally agree with you.
So the question is can what that is to be resolved before the next before the zoning hearing board on July 11th. That's the question. And I don't know what the "that" is in that sentence.
Nobody
That's the point.
Well, I think they want to know what we think that is so that they can at least say, yeah, we're comfortable trying to work this out or not. And it sounds like one is the extension of the left turn lane. At least that's one of the newer items. And then it sounds like there might be, some consideration given to County Line and 611.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Well, yeah, but specific with regard to the County Line 611, the two things that I heard them mention were extension of the northbound turn lane from 611 onto County Line Road and improvement of the right-hand turn lane on County Line Road onto 611. Those are the two things that Sandy mentioned.
I don't think we can do any improvements to that right turn lane because their property is there. That movement operates, I think, fine with our additional traffic. So that movement, I think we're limited because there's a building that's in the one corner that limits what we can do at that particular approach.
You said you have Warrington's, you just got Warrington's comments, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you haven't had a chance to fully digest them. I'm sure you glanced over it. They have concerns as well about the intersection of County Line and 611?
Give me a minute, I'm trying to remember. I think a lot of their comments were directed at Titus Avenue more than anything else.
Right. And they want to be assured that the traffic light is your responsibility and not theirs.
Of course.
Yeah.
First things first.
Personally, we probably want it to be an acronym.
I'm actually not seeing any of their comments that are related to that particular intersection. No.
You have the letter too in your.
Yeah, no, it just,
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in here related to that intersection from them.
So really, it's really on PennDOT's,
Oops.
and technically you've met their criteria. And both buildings can.
Is there
how do
any-
we-
And this is an engineering question, and it's open discussion, so brainstorming. So from your facility, you bought it from the Haggerty family that owns all the property all the way up to the intersection. With the PennDOT improvements that are occurring on County Line Road, they're really widening the shoulders in that project. By restriping, can you get an additional, right turn lane without taking property? I'm just wondering, from your facility up to the intersection, could you have actually 2 lanes going eastbound, rather than 1, and then as you get to the intersection, then there's 2 lanes? Can you,
I know what
can
you're
you,
saying, and
can you,
that's kind of
can
what
you
the
use
PennDOT
that
is saying on the
widening
road.
shoulder that PennDOT's doing now with restriping when the time comes, and can you fit
If no
from your,
less.
yeah, well, I know it's a PennDOT decision, but can you fit 2 lanes going eastbound from your facility to the intersection?
To east.
I think that's going to be a tight fit if we do that, yeah. Because the way that the shoulder is right now, it's only about a 5-foot shoulder on that side. So everything the whole way down would have to be changed, and with the left turn lanes and at Warrington Crossing, we wouldn't be able to do anything until past that intersection, if even then, because they limited the widening as you get close to 611. Their limit of work kind of ends right before that signal.
And there's you talked about, because there's a property that you'd have to take property from someone else to widen, but it's the same Haggerty people, right?
Same family.
Same family.
Same family, yeah. We already own our property.
Right. But in order to widen, you'd have to take some of their property.
To do a bona fide right-hand turn.
Right. Has there been any conversations, or could there be a conversation with them?
There has not been to date, to my knowledge.
That maybe they'd be willing to give up a little sliver to
get that other lane in?
Once we pay them the purchase price, I'll be surprised, but we could investigate.
Just curious.
Yeah.
When it,
They were already, PennDOT was already coming down, as you know, like in an hourglass in front of our property, and we agreed to take it all the way across, so there's no hourglass in front of our property anymore. It's 3 lanes all the way across.
One of the things that sometimes helps in these negotiations is to have Eric at the table from the beginning, instead of Eric getting copies of PennDOT's letter, that your letters to PennDOT and your scoping letters go to Eric first for review and approval, so that he's got a seat at the table from the very beginning, and the decisions aren't made by the time it gets back to the township.
I think you required us to do that from the beginning, Mary.
I hope.
Yeah,
Have you, Eric?
I mean, we get copied on their submissions. We're not, like,
Yes,
when they
that's-
have
there's a-
conversations, we're not.
There's a big difference between getting copied on submissions and being part of the preparation of the submissions.
Well, someone from the township commented on the scoping application that we had submitted, because we did provide the township with a copy of that.
Again, we get copies of it, we can make comments on it. We're not part of meetings between them and PennDOT,
And we have not had any meetings with PennDOT on this project yet,
or phone conversations or whatever.
or anything like that.
Okay, shall I summarize before Kristen will never speak to me again?
Made other people wait.
That is a fact. All I can tell you is we would like to get moving. We still haven't filed land development plans. I understand where you are. I also understand that I've never seen a land development plan in my life that didn't require a few waivers. So you still have leverage. We would like to get moving, and I have thought of a couple ways in which we might be able to bridge the gap, but I don't want to say them out loud. I'd like the opportunity to speak to my client about some ideas that may break the logjam, but we really would like to keep this date with the zoning hearing board after postponing it twice.
Understood. To that end, Jim, if you want to talk to your clients before you get back to us with the proposals for the wording of the conditions, is council's recommended condition tonight, one, not on that topic, work out issues in Gilmore Traffic Engineer letter to the satisfaction of the township engineer. Could that cover what you hope to come back with?
Well, I guess Eric can take the position, you haven't satisfied me, and that's always going to be there. But what I'd like to do is say that the things that Bill ticked off tonight, I think I'm authorized on every one of those. I don't have a problem with any of those at all. It's just, if one of the conditions is fix Easton and County Line, I'm not sure I know how to. At this point, have no idea what it might cost. Perhaps we can work something out cooperatively or with the state, because they're both state roads, I think.
Mayor, would it be along the lines of what you just said, rather than satisfying the Gilmore recommendations? Could it be more of satisfying, not satisfying, but we could go neutral, conditioned upon staff's recommendation after you've had some further conversations? You'd have to make a recommendation, say, look, we did everything we can, or we can get this, we can get that, or they've agreed to do more, and this is where we're at.
Yeah.
Could we just make a condition upon the staff recommendation before July 11th?
Yes. The short answer to that question is yes. The longer answer to that question is there's a subtle distinction between what Jim just said and what I'm recommending to you. And Jim just said, like, we're willing to work with the state and try and, figure out what can be done in a reasonable way to improve the intersection.
Can I suggest some language or
Just let me finish.
Okay.
What's I think is really important is the township having a seat at the table for those discussions, not just being copied on correspondence back and forth.
Well, I'm talking to my client. I don't have any special pull with PennDOT, but I was talking about a staff recommendation, as the president suggested, that the applicant has demonstrated a satisfactory level of cooperation towards the improvement of that intersection. That leaves it totally open-ended, and you can be as harsh or as compromising as you wish.
I think that's generally in the right direction. I'm just going to go back because I haven't said it enough. I think the township really needs us a seat at the table in the PennDOT negotiations, and I'm just not hearing you guys say yes to that.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes, but you'll have the negotiation. PennDOT's not going to listen to me.
Yeah, we're always surprised.
But I guarantee you, any meeting that we have with PennDOT, you can have a seat at the table,
And phone calls, Sandy?
and coffee,
Oh,
and
yeah,
donuts,
we-
and...
Anything that we would set up with PennDOT, we would include the township on. So we have not responded back to anything with PennDOT related to their response letter. In fact, we met with the township staff and went over their letters and PennDOT's letters, but we haven't talked to PennDOT about their letter or anything yet, because we were waiting for Warrington's letter as well. So
all of the things that were on Bill's list, plus the additional condition that the project be in conformance with the plan that we see, the 616 plan, and the staff's recommendation that the applicant has done everything reasonable to try and work through the traffic issues.
At that intersection.
Yes.
That's fine.
And Eric gets a seat at the table, is that what you're saying?
I don't know, I didn't know if you caught that.
Yeah, sorry, we was having a sidebar.
Okay, so that plus we still have
To talk about these three variances. Is that appropriate to get those over with tonight, or, I guess we have to, right?
Well, that's all we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right, we're already agreeing to those with the conditions.
But we didn't actually
And
agree
all
on
the pressure
that.
in the world on Eric.
We'll make sure everybody's okay with these three. That's off the table. You're good.
Okay.
Subject to all the conditions we
Subject
talked
to
about.
everything
The
else that Mary's
conditions
gonna,
that-
yeah.
Okay. And if I could impose upon someone, Mary or Bill, to send me a copy of what I just agreed to.
I usually send,
That's no problem. I like when I get that. I can fill that out tomorrow
we
morning
usually
for
send a
you.
letter to the zoning hearing board about a week ahead of time, and you'd be copied on it. We can do it.
And I'll say yea or nay, and, yes.
And so council's motion would be to authorize me to send a letter with those conditions to the zoning hearing board, and failing the township staff being able to report that the applicant has worked satisfactorily, reasonably, and cooperatively to solve the traffic issues at the intersection. Council authorizes us to go in opposition to the application. You only have one shot to do that. I can't go on my own.
Don't forget the coffee and donuts. I think I heard her say it.
I said Eric could have done it.
I don't need donuts, Jim.
All right. So Mary, you'll draw that up, you'll take a look at it. Everybody will be like,
Okay.
But
Thank
you're
you very
going to
much.
make a motion.
need a motion?
Yeah, well, you need a, everybody's
Something just
looking at me funny. Of
What
course
she
you-
said. What she said. Just
Yeah, a
somebody
motion
thinks-
to authorize me to write a letter imposing the conditions we discussed this evening, and failing the applicant's agreement to those conditions, authorized to send me in opposition to the zoning hearing board.
I make a motion in support of the position that Township Solicitor will enumerate the conditions set forth this evening, to include an additional condition that, help me out again, Mary, that
The applicant will-
the applicant will work out the remaining traffic issues to the satisfaction of staff. And if they do not, if the applicant does not, we will then instruct the solicitor to appear in opposition. Either appear in opposition or send a letter in opposition. Do we have to be more specific as to what that
No.
would look like?
No.
Okay, that's the motion.
Wait a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah. Good luck. Okay, well, it's getting late, so I think we'll just adjourn this meeting.
I think it better be on the agenda before him at the zoning hearing.
That would
All
be
right.
Kristen's first call
I'm
tomorrow
calling
morning.
I-nosy first thing in the morning.
All right, so next is the Chapman Auto Group.
This is 1170 Eastern Road, so I'll actually throw up the first one just to familiarize. They have a building that's adjacent to the dealership. They've been in front of you before for this building. It's high on the photo on the screen. It's highlighted in black. And they've been in front of the zoning hearing board twice. So they have conditions upon them from their previous decision and order from the zoning hearing board. And they are in front of you this evening to get relief from the previous conditions. And their attorney, Ms. Pianzio, is here to present their application.
Good evening, Kristen Pianzio from Hamburg, Rubin, Mullen, Maxwell, and Lupin. I have with me Gary Tilford, who did the plan that is on the screen and submitted with the application, and the Chapman crew is with me as well regarding any operation issues that you may have. This 1170 Eastern Road is a 20,000 square foot building. Back in 2010, a use variance application appeared before the zoning hearing board and was granted, which permitted use of about 5,700 square feet of that 20,000 square feet for auto body and minor mechanical repair work. At the time, council wrote a letter requesting conditions which were imposed by the zoning hearing board, the thrust of which was that the interconnection which exists between, I don't have my thingy, thank you, there's an interconnection there between this 1170 Eastern Road and the balance of the property, which is indeed the dealership property. You can see to the right the cars, that's part of it, and it's that triangular mass to the right of your screen, so that the cars weren't going out onto Eastern Road in order to go back and forth. This is a facility that's just used by Chapman. The average person cannot just drop their car off for repairs. This is their internal operation, so it has no effect on anybody along 611, and that interconnection has served well since 2010. Back in 2016, we came back in and asked for that space and some of the storage space for a total of 15,600 square feet to be converted to auto body repairs. We included a paint booth and made modifications on the interior to let that happen. As these decisions were rendered, the zoning hearing board always attaches the condition that we conform with the testimony and the exhibits presented at the hearing. So back in 2016, the condition was, auto body repair. So now we're in front of you to modify that condition so that they can do either or both. They want to do repairs to trucks in that facility and or the body work, basically having more space in order to utilize that area for whatever it is that's, pressing at the moment. Again, it's all internal for Chapman. If you turn to the next page, there are some modifications, which is another condition that we need to address. Along the right side of the building, there is one overhead door. We want to add 3 for a total of 4. That all faces the Chapman property and that interconnection that I was speaking of. And that permits them to have 16 bays as they call them. It's 16 work areas internal to the building. So that's new. There's going to be 4 garages there to open and close versus 1 today. We had to relocate the trash receptacle area. But that's basically it. It's those minor modifications which bring us to the zoning hearing board and therefore in front of you folks.
When you came to the staff meeting on this application, we asked what kind of trucks you were going to be repairing, and the answer was Super Duties, 250s, 450s, things they sell on the lot, not bigger trucks than that. Is that still the case?
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question. I'm a little bit confused. Looking to expand the building or just expand the use inside the building?
The latter, the use inside.
And currently, which is inside? Auto repair or body repair?
Right now, it's auto body repair, body repair.
And I think the original issues were noise that might be transmitted to the neighbors in the back. Has there been any complaints about any of that we know of, Richard?
No,
With the
no.
current uses?
No, sir.
So really, you're looking to modify the internal use. Is there an expectation that there'll be any additional noise that comes out of the building?
No, there'll be, I mean, right now, we're doing truck work on the other property. So this is actually further away from where the neighbors are.
And you want to add some bay doors that face your own property, right?
Pardon?
And you want to add some bay doors that face your own property?
Yes, yes.
And just so you know, Mr. Slotnick is one of the neighbors that lives in the back who's been vocal before. Randy took it upon himself to reach out to him before we came here tonight and just check in to see if everything was okay, and he's fine. He says things have been great, and he has no complaints.
Are you guys currently working on Super Duty and heavy duty trucks? Or is this currently just regular trucks, light duty trucks?
We work on them now, but not as many. You know, Ford is just,
Randy, you
Can
got
you
to
hear?
come up here
Can you hear?
to the microphone next to Kristen. Right next to Kristen, so Mr. Wade can hear you.
we do work on them now, but when you work on these type of trucks, you have to have a heavier lift. And we want to add lifts, the heavy truck lifts, so that we can work on these trucks in this building. I don't know that.
Okay,
answer,
and-
but we do. Yes, to answer your question, we do work on them. Ford is really looking for us to do more repairs on them.
Is this the building here that I'm pointing to now that you're doing your truck repair now?
We do most of your yes, they're in that building there. Yes.
So that's so council knows that's where the truck repair is occurring now.
Yes.
And here's the neighborhood back here.
Yes.
So it has 16 lifts in the rendering. What do you guys have now?
Lift.
Do you have
Well, right
16?
now, we really don't have lifts. We have, it's just used for body work. And with the body work, you're not really using too much of a in-ground lift to lift up the vehicles up. You don't have to get underneath them or anything like that. Anything that now that would have to be worked on underneath would be repaired, and then would go what we call our main shop, to the other building. But with these, what we want to do is we want to put these what they call truck lifts in. Huge metal, 20,000 pounds, there's some of them.
Yeah, 20,000 pounds.
20,000 pounds. And these are, what you're going to see, they're not, it's not a tractor trailer, we wouldn't have space. One would just put us out of business, just space-wise. Would be like, you see, like utility trucks, maybe a dump trucks, trucks like that, 450s. Pardon?
I got you on that. And then you guys already do painting, so there wouldn't be any changes to the noise levels on any sort of ventilation you guys would need to continue those sort of operations?
I have not had any complaints at all about, any noise coming from there. And there is a gentleman, I've come to know him pretty well now, the one neighbor, I think
Mark.
he attends a lot, Mark, he attends quite a few of the meetings. And, the biggest thing he had was really the alarms, and I put signs up. I mean, Steve really deserves a lot of credit. And he has my personal number, and a couple of neighbors have my personal number. I have texts from them, and I have not anything. Biggest thing is grass is growing a little bit around the fence, stuff like that. But no, nothing with noise. I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
and I think Mark would let you know it if I was making too much noise. Am I going to do?
Yeah.
He would say so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What are you gonna do with the building that you're using now?
We're still going to use that, yes.
So you have
Yes.
both buildings? okay.
Yes. I can't, we just, with repairs, you have to keep up with, we could be, we could be 2 weeks out. Somebody calls for an appointment, and we could be 2 weeks out. And you really don't, you don't want to be, you don't want to serve the customer that way by being too far out to work on their vehicles. And this would be more like, small business guys, with their type of vehicles. That like to get them in, got them worked on, because they, when their trucks are down, they're at, they're down. They can't, they're losing money. So, it would be,
So square footage
Would it
is
be
still
unrealistic to
15,000?
ask to have the bay doors closed while you guys are conducting maintenance on the vehicles?
We have bay doors closed when you work.
yeah, they're closed, yes, yes. Yeah. Now, we haven't, yeah, they're closed, yes. Yeah. The only thing is that I think the only doors are adding, there's a couple doors on here. There will be some that can come inside, but we're just thinking of, when they're moving around in there, it'd be easier to back them in and out that way. It really would be, it would be safer that way. And you can get, some trucks that are, a little easier to maneuver that way. I think it would make the most sense. I got to tell you, that's a distance from where that building is compared to where the neighbors are. I mean, that's more than, you can see the one building there. I mean, that's twice as far away as that smaller building. And we haven't had any. The biggest complaint we had was really the alarms, and we did address that. And I understand that. That's the real noise we were getting.
And that was you using the car alarms to
The
find
car,
cars?
yes,
right?
yes, that was the case. We would go to that. And the one noise, we're only open to, like 5 o'clock. We don't have all these night hours, so it's not like it's night, where it's going to be, 11 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night, where they're going to be working in them.
Anybody else have any questions? Otherwise, everybody okay with being neutral with your conditions?
Yeah, I just had one question about the conditions. You're going to be doing general repairs and body work, correct?
Yes.
And you'll keep the bay doors closed during the general repairs?
Yes. Yes.
So I'm going to put that in as a condition, Kristen?
Okay.
And then, again, limiting it to the Super Duties, 250s, 450s trucks you sell on the lot?
And then the other, the zoning hearing board usually puts this in, but other than adjusting that previous condition, all other conditions from your previous 2 zoning hearing boards will remain in effect.
As long, those that are not inconsistent with
Correct.
this, yes.
Correct.
So you
Yeah.
open the doors to get the trucks in and out, and you have to
Yeah.
close them, keep them closed when you're not using them. Okay.
Okay, sounds like you're in good shape.
We're good, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Guess we should have done you first, right?
Of course. Always. Have a good night.
You too.
Good to see you again.
All right, finally, we have 929 Langdon.
929 Langdon is an addition that the resident would like to put on, just to show you real quick. It's a family room and a porch area, so it's a rear yard setback issue. And the rear yard setback is, the ordinance requires 50 feet, so the shaded area would be the patio and the new family room. They'd be at 46 feet, 3.5 inches, so the staff's recommendation is neutral.
Okay with that?
Yes.
All right.
Not the shortest one yet.
Bill, do you have anything further?
Yes, sir.
Mary?
Nothing.
Eric? All right, nothing further. Meeting is adjourned.